Hello, everyone. This is Sonia of the Consortium of Christian Businesswomen, and you're tuned in today to Kingdom Business. Today, I want to talk about entrepreneurship during the coronavirus. There's many challenges during the coronavirus, and there's also, I believe, opportunities during this time. I want to start off talking about some of the challenges, and I'm sure as an entrepreneur, you know some of those challenges. But I think it's important that, if you can look at things or if it's possible to do things maybe a different way, then it can possibly be helpful during this time of coronavirus. When I think about some of the challenges that entrepreneurs may be facing at this time, one of the big things is that you can't operate as usual. And, that can be very distressing and unnerving, but, it also can cause major problems for your business because depending on the type of business that you're doing, you may need to operate a certain way. You may need to, do things a certain way because of the nature of your business. For example, I do home health care, and as a result, I have to be able to go into people's homes and to take care of their loved ones. Now, I'm considered an essential worker, but if I wasn't, I would have to have close contact with people in order to be able to operate in my business. So it would be difficult for me not to be able to have contact in close contact with people if that was the nature of my business during this time of coronavirus, because that would be a big part of what I do as an entrepreneur. So being unable to operate as usual can be a big challenge for entrepreneurs. Another major challenge is being unable to maintain staff, because depending on what kind of business you're in, your staff may be put on leave. They may be collecting unemployment right now because they can't work, or they may actually get a job in an area where they are needed right now. And so if you do open up and operate business as usual, the staff that you had before may not be available to you because they went and got other jobs. So this can be a challenge for employers right now because, if you are an organization that requires staff in order to get the job done, and those staff members leave and go work for somebody else during this time, that can be a challenge when you do open back up and are able to work to full capacity or even partial capacity if you don't have the staff members that can come in and do the job. Another big problem at this time for many entrepreneurs is not being able to pay expenses because revenue is not coming in. And so without that revenue coming in, and if you don't have the capacity to borrow, you may not be able to pay your expenses. And some things you may be able to put off paying because other businesses are aware that you don't have the money coming in, but there's some things that you may not be able to put off, such as paying your rent or your mortgage for the place that you are operating business out of. So expenses can be a major challenge for entrepreneurs that are not getting in revenue at this current time because of the pandemic. Another challenge can be that you may need to purchase new equipment to continue operating. So that adds more expenses on top of the regular operating expenses that you currently have. You may need to purchase some computers and, just different things that you may not have had to utilize at other times. You may need to purchase some delivery vehicles, things that you may not have had to use at other times. You may need to purchase those things, and as a result, like I said, that increases the expenses that you had, because even if you borrow money at a certain point, you have to start paying that money back. And those challenges are very real for entrepreneurs at this time, because you have to figure out, how am I going to continue to be in business during this pandemic as I continue to try to do business. And it's one thing if, as an entrepreneur, maybe you can work for somebody else that's essential business to bring in some income. But if your only income is working for yourself and your business is at a standstill right now, it can be very challenging. And so I'm going to go to a break, coming back on the other side, talking about entrepreneurship during the coronavirus. The Comforter Home Care Services provides in-home personal assistance to senior citizens and individuals with developmental disabilities. We offer light housework, personal care, medication reminders, laundry services, meal preparation, and more. Contact us today at 216-288-2800. Again, that's 216-288-2800. And we're back, continuing to talk about entrepreneurship during the coronavirus. Before I went to break, I spoke about some of the challenges as an entrepreneur that can possibly happen as a result of the coronavirus. And now I want to talk about some opportunities that can happen during this time of the coronavirus. One of the things that I think is an opportunity is, it's an opportunity that entrepreneurs can restructure their business. Maybe it was, something that they wanted to do all along, but they never felt like it was the right time to do it. That they couldn't necessarily stop operations, restructure, and then start back up. But if that was something that maybe had been in the works all along, or an idea that had been in the works all along, if you're not operating, this may be a good time to restructure. Maybe to cut some fat that you didn't need, or you found out you didn't need as you were operating business, or do some things different that maybe you could have been more efficient in certain areas if you had done it, differently. So I think that this could be a good time to restructure as an organization, if this was something that maybe you wanted to do, but it might have been difficult to do while you were in operation. Another thing that is possible, depending on the entrepreneur and what they had intentions of, is you could actually start a new business. Maybe there was some business ideas that you had in play that you weren't able to act on while you were operating another business, but now, because you don't have the other business to work with, maybe you can start that new business idea that you had been thinking about doing for a while, but just never had the time or the opportunity to do it. And so during this time, maybe you can, go forward with that new business idea that may help you, once all this process is over with, you could actually take off with. Or if it's something that it can be used right now, maybe you could just take off with it right now and get your feet wet, see if it's a audience for it right now, see if how people would respond to it right now. Use your emails that you've collected over the years to send out some information, maybe take some surveys to see how receptive potential customers may be to this new idea. But, it's possible that if you were considering starting a new business and just didn't have the time before, that now you may have the time to actually move forward with it. Another thing that I think that this time of this coronavirus opportunity is to access new customers. Oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, in fact, I would say most entrepreneurs, marketing is a big thing. How can you market, your budget for marketing, what customers would be more likely to be interested in the products that you're trying to sell. And maybe at this time you can start to reach out to more customers to in different ways, and maybe creative ways that you weren't thinking about before. Because maybe if you had one marketing model that kind of worked for you, you kind of went in that direction and stayed in that direction. But during this time, you have an opportunity to reach out to new customers, whether via internet, social media, just whatever. Maybe you might want to invest as to the extent that you can, and reaching out to new customers, to try to get a new customer base. So when you do open back up, you'll have, more people that you can connect with that can potentially purchase your product or utilize your service. Another thing right now is, depending on the type of business that you're in, it can have a lower overhead than the business that you previously operated or that you operated before the pandemic. Let's say, for example, that you had a warehouse or some place where you stored your products, and maybe now your products is stored in your home because you could not afford to maintain that place to store your products. That will lower your overhead because you don't have to pay someone else to rent out their building, or a mortgage on another place to rent out to maintain supplies. Maybe you can store them in your basement or in your attic, or just another space in your home, depending on how large, obviously. I mean, if it's an extremely large organization, that would be difficult to do. But just like a smaller organization that has, you have a lot of products that you sell, but your home can still be utilized for that. That would lower the overhead that you have to, spend. Also on utilities, if you're doing things at home, then you're just paying what you would normally pay at home for utilities. So in a general sense, you don't have to pay employees to do certain things, depending on the type of business. Because if you're just transitioning, for example, to delivery, then you still have to pay employees. But depending, it may be something that you were delegating that you actually could do, but because maybe you didn't want to do it, or you just had other things that you were doing, you were delegating those things, so you were paying people to do it. And now, since you're home, for example, you have the time to actually do those things. And so I think that's another opportunity as it relates to entrepreneurship during this time of coronavirus. Another thing that I think is important during this time is to network with other entrepreneurs or just people that maybe are in the same industry with you. And maybe there's some things that over the years, as you were doing your particular business, you may have didn't know. And networking with other people in your industry, maybe you can learn some things new. You may even find out some ways that you can continue as an entrepreneur that you didn't realize. Because it's just something that you didn't think of. But networking with other entrepreneurs, they can give you some ideas possibly to be able to continue your business during this time of coronavirus. And it's also important, I think, to have people that you can reach out to that can understand what you're going through because, mentally, emotionally, it can be very upsetting to be in an uncertain place as an entrepreneur because your livelihood and your life is so invested in your business that mentally it can be draining. And it's fine to talk to family and friends, but sometimes you want to talk to people that are doing what you're doing, or at least in business for themselves, and they understand what you're going through on some level emotionally. And so I'll be back on the other side of this break.
Cinemusic Mood is a music production service that provides music for films, commercials, musicals, TV shows, and so much more. If you would like these services, please call the phone number 216-255-7619. Again, the number is 216-255-7619. Or you can email us at cinemusicmood@gmail.com. Again, you can email us at cinemusicmood@gmail.com. Thank you.
And we're back. Today I want to read from Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. I want to encourage you today as you're thinking about entrepreneurship during this time of crisis, during this time of coronavirus, that you consider that as a Christian, it's important that we lean on the Lord at all times, and particularly during times of crisis. Because at this uncertain time, there's no right, I believe, or wrong way to do business. You're stepping out on faith as you did when you initially started your entrepreneurship journey. You're trying to get your balance. You're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And it's important that you lean on God. I really believe that, I'm the type, I like to pray every step of the way. Because if something is not the best decision for me, I don't want to waste time, money, or anything like that. I believe that stepping out on faith requires prayer first. I believe that God will open doors of opportunities that maybe we've never thought about before as entrepreneurs, but it's important that you also allow him to close doors that maybe you held on to that you shouldn't be holding on to. And so when those doors close, you can walk away with them in the confidence that God knows and that he's directing your path. And so in this time of pandemic and crisis, I think the major thing as a Christian is to lean on God and to know that He's going to carry you through this process like He's carried you through every other process. One of the things that I think is important is to look back and to see the things that He's taken you through in times past, and to know that this time is no different. He's going to carry you through, and to be confident to lean on Him, because it's so important during this time of uncertainty that if you're not certain in anything else, you're certain in Christ Jesus. I would like to thank you all for listening in this week, and my hope and prayer is that you receive something out of it that will help you continue on your entrepreneurship journey. And I hope you tune in next time for the next message. Have a great week.